Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support the show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today, and welcome to episode 25 of Defining Duke Ultimate, a Defining Duke supplement. I am joined by associate producer Ben Smith. Ben, how are you?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Doing all right. I'm feeling good. Did a lot of furniture moving yesterday, so I'm feeling a little more brolic than the average Matty. And today we got ourselves a special episode. So we've been playing this for a number of weeks, and then when we got Cog in the mix, we wanted to do episodes with him. And so now here we are today doing our first ever call-in for Defining Duke Ultimate. Obviously, Colin started this with his aptly named call-in with Colin. And a lot of people wanted us to do it here on Defining Duke. So Ben will be the tech guy handling all the different callers, and we'll be tapping him on the shoulder for his thoughts as well. Ben, of course, feel free to speak over me if you ever feel like it. And it's going to be a good time. I have no idea what to expect here. That's the thing. I'm a little, I don't say nervous, but you know, there's a preparation to all the shows I do, and I'm surprised at the line of people in the waiting room. This is intense. Are these emotions I should be experiencing, Ben? You got to talk me off the ledge here.
Well, you know, you don't have to worry too much because, I mean, I recognize a lot of these names just because I'm in the Discord a lot, and a lot of them,
right?
You know, they're just jokers. You know that we don't, you know, but no, we'll be good. We've never had anybody come on and just try to troll, and even if they did, we edit them out, so there's no moment of glory. But I think the important thing to realize is that some people are going to get in, some just aren't in the hour or so we have, and we get as many as we can. And, you know, you just talk. It's like normal human being talking. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, let's get it started then. Feel free to pull someone in and we'll get to chatting.
All right, first caller coming in now.
503 Dead, welcome. You are our first call in. Can you hear us?
Oh, yeah, I can. Can you hear me?
Excellent. Yes, we can. How are you doing? What's on your mind?
You know, I'm just kind of surprised I was number one. No,
Yeah.
I'm good.
First ever,
what's on
dude.
my mind?
Congrats.
I don't know, working and yeah, no. How are you guys?
We're doing well, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. This is very new to me. So, you know, if you want to just fire away whatever topic you had in mind, let's get it started.
Yeah, no, I saw that Game Pass released their late July games. Or you know what's coming out, and I saw Crimson Skies, and I gotta ask, where is Crimson Skies now? And I also want to know why don't you guys ever talk about it?
Well, quite truthfully, a main reason we don't really talk about it is I try to not bullshit, right? So I don't want to talk about things that I'm not necessarily super familiar with, and that's where you lean into your co-host. With Crimson Skies, I'm just wondering if it may have been a product of its time, in a manner of speaking. I can't speak on the sales numbers or anything, but to me, this isn't really, I don't want to say it's not a game that's not going to capture an audience, because, for example, King's Bounty, really off-the-wall RPG, by the way, but this game, I think a first entry was in 1991, and it's getting a sequel next month. So anything's really possible as long as there's funding and interest. So I want to say never, but as to where it is, I mean, I couldn't really answer that super accurately because I think it just may have, once again, been a product of its time. Ben, I don't know if have you ever played Crimson Sky before?
No,
or is this
I never.
Something?
No.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, even then, I never played it when I was younger. This was an original Xbox game, correct?
Yeah, I think it was actually a sequel to a PC game that came out a little before it, but yeah. No, I was just thinking, like, that seems like the perfect game to, I think, do like an open world kind of sequel with, where you can kind of jump out of the plane, maybe do some shooting and stuff, but
absolutely. And
it's kind of a weird one to abandon.
I agree.
Like that weird Phantom Dust remake or something like that, but not
right.
Crimson
True.
Skies.
I forgot about that. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the exciting part about Game Pass. Something I've touched on a lot is these games that we look at now in the more traditional sense of budgets and player base. Is it there? Will people buy it? Is so different now that something like a new Crimson Sky or any random game can come into existence because you're now inviting it to a baked-in player base that just has to do nothing but download it, and then eventually with xCloud they can just stream it. And so That's why I'm starting to develop the never say never attitude to games. Like, yeah, it may have been a product of its time, but hey, you might end up seeing one just because if they can make it in the right way for cheap enough and they know that they can get it on Game Pass, then that's all there is to it, right?
Yeah, totally.
All right. Well, 503 Dead, congrats again on being
Thank
number
you.
one. We appreciate you taking the time to call in about Crimson Sky, and we hope you have a great rest of your day, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Keep it up.
Of course. Thank you.
Later.
Matty,
All
I
right,
don't think
God.
Crimson Skies is like, I remember the name, but I just had to look it up, and it's not even my style of game, but I feel like it was such a, during that, like, was that like 2000, I think it said.
It was a very early
really niche
game. Yeah,
Yeah,
it really was. I was kind of caught off guard by it. I'm not even gonna lie. I was like, wow, I forgot this game existed, because I remember seeing, is that game that always I'd see the box art for in GameStop or Circuit City or Best
Sure.
Buy. You know, you'd be walking around, you'd see it, and I'm like, I'm not into airplanes and stuff. For me,
Right.
vehicular combat just never spoke to me, because I felt like I was not. It sounds like I have a power complex. I swear I don't. I think you can tell by my timid nature I don't. But I like in games when I'm on foot and I'm doing things myself, not relying on vehicles or other things beyond my crew control. So
Yeah, for sure. Cool.
Never really spoke to me. But hey, let's see if we can get someone else in here.
Sounds good.
Monster Pontes 93, welcome. You're a second call in. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. We're happy to have you here.
I'm super happy to be here. I didn't even think I was going to get through. I'm on my lunch break. I'm on my lunch break, and I'm like,
Oh.
this is going on. Sweet.
Oh, all right. What are you having for lunch?
Cool. I just actually had some leftover American chop suey. Actually,
Oh, go. Nice.
good stuff, man. Good stuff.
Absolutely.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. We're happy to talk to you today. So we got Ben online as well, and
Sweet.
wanted to know what you were thinking about. What do you want to talk about today?
Oh, I had a couple questions. I actually thought of a few of them.
Sure.
Just in case, because I already did a write-in to you guys.
Okay.
For Define a Duke. But anyways, we'll go with this one then. So, I was thinking. So what do you think of Xbox being the best-selling hardware for the month of June? I know it's pretty, like, it's not like, crazy, but like it's a pretty big step going forward for Xbox. I think really shows that they're getting out there more, and I like that. And I know they're not going to be outselling the pace of the PS5, Nintendo Switch. They've just been killing it. But do you really think that the showcase for for E3 really put them on the market for that month, saying, "Wow, you should really own an Xbox Series X or an S." Like it's finally coming.
Yeah, it's a great question. We're definitely gonna talk about it more on our main episode this week.
Oh, cool.
So we'll get Cog's thoughts on it too.
Awesome,
But I have no problem talking on it extensively now. Yeah, I think what we're gonna see with this is a real test is going to be when these consoles are more able to be purchased, where you can walk into your Walmart and just see it there on the shelf. I think that's when the sales numbers are going to speak more. The reason I say that is because right now, with all these shortages of like semiconductors and just general parts, where you're seeing these companies search for workarounds to get as many produced as quickly as possible. And both sides, whenever they produce them, are selling out as soon as they're available. I'm starting to wonder if it's just who had more available at that time or who sold out the quickest. Where these numbers are encouraging, and I do think there's no coincidence that the one time they do beat out PlayStation in console sales is when they do a major commitment to Game Pass, right? Like, you had a beautiful point there. I think that their June show said, hey, here's 27 games you're not going to have to pay for if you're a subscriber. And no one can argue with money saved, is what I always say. Is like, you just can't say no to the amount of money going in your pockets, because now it's baked into the service, and something that you wouldn't have tried, you're going to maybe give a shot now. So yeah, I definitely think that June E3 showcase had a big part to play with it. I think the future roadmap and the claims, Phil Spencer's a chatty guy, right? Like he says a lot of things his team's looking at, and people appreciate that transparency. But I also think people are getting a little, I won't say tired of it, but they want to see the ball drop on some things. And I think that's where E3 was. For a lot of fans, they finally saw a product. I was joking on our main show. Sorry, I don't mean to ramble. I was joking on our main show on how, finally we have games to talk about. We ran this show, Defining Duke, really based off interview clips and rumors and discussions, and that's fine. But that's when you don't have games to talk about it, it can be very difficult, and it can start to feel like your show is running in circles. So E3
absolutely.
was even a breath of fresh air for us, and I'm sure the audience, right? Because we were able to just talk on games. So yeah, I definitely think June played a major factor in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like speaking of the show, like I've been a fan since day one. You guys are awesome. Like your chemistry that you had with Carrick was just amazing, man. It's
Thank you.
Lord Cog is a great addition. Really, really great. The energy you guys bring to the show is just incredible.
Thank
It's
you
really
so
cool.
much.
But yeah, if you got time for one more, great. If not, on to the next one, man. But,
yeah, let's go ahead and let's do it. Yeah, but we'll have to be a little
cool.
bit quicker about this one but yeah, no
sure.
problem.
Not a big deal. Not a big deal. So last week was really big for the Nintendo, like for the handheld department. OLED was announced. Not super impressive, but it's Nintendo,
Right. Yeah.
And also the Steam Deck, And so what do you think of like Xbox maybe like a year or two tapping into the handheld market? I know with the cloud service, it's kind of like what they're leaning towards. Like, and that's a pretty good once they get it, set in stone with the stability and all that. Like, I mean, what do you think? Do you think maybe also Sony maybe revisiting the handheld, saying like, "Wow,
don't tempt them."
Don't. I was gonna say, don't tempt me on that one.
I know how you feel with the Vita. So
yeah. For the Xbox side of things, I've suggested for a while that I think Xbox would be smart to look into something. The issue with them is that a lot of their future is through streaming tech. And I don't know if the handheld market wants streaming. I think a lot of the excitement for something like Steam Deck came through the idea that it was playing these games natively. Whereas what's cool about playing a game on my phone is I can stream it to my phone, so it's not going to kill my battery. It's something that exactly right. So I think Xbox, it would be smart for them to just have a branded handheld device for xCloud, but I don't think it'll be in the way we're expecting, which is where, given that the Steam Deck can be wiped, you can wipe the Steam OS rather, and you can install Windows, and then you can start adding maybe the Game Pass app. I think Xbox will try to support other products and get Game Pass onto them rather than making their own. I think maybe that's smart for them, but I'd be shocked if there wasn't any R&D ongoing right now for some type of handheld. Ben, what do you think on that?
I think that, well, whether or not there's a desire for it, and there's always some desire for everything. Everybody, some people have a desire, but like we know over time that most of these manufacturers, at least early on in the life of a device, are not making their money on the hardware. Eventually, they make money on the hardware. But I think Xbox, Microsoft in general is smart enough to know that, hey, we can either make a ton of money off a service using other people's hardware, or we can maybe take a loss on hardware and potentially increase our service. So, maybe eventually we'll see something more of a focus on like the Surface tablets, right? Buy a Surface, get a year worth of Game Pass for free or something like that.
Right.
But I think Microsoft is too smart to jump into manufacturing another handheld for a service that's mostly cloud-based. That's just my thought on it.
Right. Cool.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Monster, for both your questions. It was great chatting with you.
Appreciate it. Thank you guys for taking the call. So
no problem,
have a good one, guys.
Have a good rest of your lunch break.
You too. Bye-bye, guys.
Matty, this wasn't in June, but I contributed to the Xbox sales in July. Actually, I bought a Series S. Yeah, I figure I've got my monster beefy PC for most of my gaming. I've got my PS5 for the exclusives, Series S for lounging on the recliner. It's perfect.
Perfect. Yes, the recliner game. So that's the thing. One thing I don't like about my setup, I do most of my gaming in my bedroom, is I'm always in an office chair. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, there's going to come a point in my life, probably when I get my own place with my girlfriend, I'm going to learn what it's like to couch game. And it's going to evolve my whole life to a new level.
It's been a while for me, too. So, yeah. Cool.
All
Next caller?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
The Magnum Suplex, welcome. You're our third caller. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. How are you, Magnum?
I am doing great. Long time, first time.
Awesome. Happy to have you here. What are you what are you itching to talk about?
Hey, well, I guess I was wondering if you guys could help me out.
All right.
I've been debating about if I should get a Xbox or a PC for gaming. And I've been a long time PlayStation fan and player since PS2 days, and Yeah, I don't know. Xbox's Game Pass and everything just sounds very enticing, and it's kind of drawing me in. So, was wondering if you guys could just help me out, decide which I should invest in, and
Sure.
Yeah, I guess pros and cons to each, I guess.
Of course. I always just, and of course you can divulge however much you want, but it depends on the amount of disposable income you have when it comes to a PC. I think that's is money tight, or do you have a lot to spend on this thing? Because that's usually a pretty, because it determines how much you can future-proof the system, is why I ask.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like money's not super tight for me right now. So, I mean, I'm willing to spend, and it's just the thing that scares me with PC gaming is, I'm very new to it. So I wouldn't even know where to begin on if like I should buy one pre-built or build one myself. And, I have no idea.
I'm sure Ben can speak more authoritatively to the PC side of things. I'll just throw in real quick before I toss it to him is that I've always bought pre-builts my whole life. Like even when it was bad to buy a pre-built, like I bought one in 2012 and that was when, probably wasn't a good idea to do so. But I've never built my own, not because I don't want to or because I'm too lazy to, but because pre-builts have come so far now where it is, in a manner of speaking, like buying a traditional console. And especially when there are boxes you can check on like CyberPower PC. That's where I've bought most of my pre-builts. And you can just customize the parts that are in there for changing the price tag and mixing and matching. So I've never really had a problem with pre-builts. I've never got a bad pre-built before, but I know there have been some bad ones folks have had. Once again, Ben, I want to pass it to you because I'm sure you could speak better on the PC end before we move to Xbox.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Matty's totally right. It all depends on your budget. I mean, if you've got less than $1,500 to spend, I would say right now, then I would say go for a Series X because you're going to get more longevity out of it. You're going to get everything that you're looking for. It also depends on what else you want to do. If you're just looking at gaming, it also depends on like where do you want to play? Do you want to play sitting at a desk, or do you want to be able to play on your couch or your recliner or something like that? You can
that's an underrated point too.
Yeah, absolutely. It also depends, like you can use a controller on the PC, but I personally think if you're someone who's comfortable with mouse and keyboard, for me at least, not for everybody, that's a better experience. So I would definitely say that would be my preference. But again, I think that the very first thing you have to look at is that budget point. Talking real quick about the pre-built versus building your own. Right now, we're in such a market that unless you're buying a pre-built, it's pretty unlikely you're going to be able to easily procure a decent graphics card or sometimes even a power supply right now. So like there's a lot of factors at this moment in time that weren't there before. So, but I would start with budget.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And for sorry, go on. You were going to say something?
No, I was just, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I was just going to say for the console side of things, I think it's as simple as there's an ease of use there. You'll buy this thing and it'll be your system for the next 7 years. Of course, anything overheating and breaking withstanding, it should be your next piece of hardware for that long. If not, I'm sure you can get a replacement, but it's going to last you about as long. You don't have to worry about upgrading it, getting inside of it. I always talk about one thing I don't like about PC gaming personally is that just sometimes shit doesn't work and it doesn't make any sense. Like it just doesn't work. And it's one thing I hate about it. I'm like, why? Like, why are computers like this? We're so advanced in technology everywhere. And then you just got computers that suddenly blue screen. You've got computers that just don't run games out of nowhere, or like, I will have a stronger build than you, but I'm running the game worse than you. Like there's just things, and it's all boiling down to optimization where it can be pretty spotty on PC where I've heard more often than not, at least personally, where games have run better on console than the PC port. Like I feel like for some reason the PC port's always just an afterthought, unless it starts there and then is ported to consoles. But I just I've never, and mind you, I'm a little biased because I work at my computer all the time. Like I'm at one right now. So I like to have that separation for me personally, where I can go to my console and it's away from my work. Where I prefer console gaming personally, I like kicking my feet up and using a system. I think just the ability to press a button, load in the disc, call it a day. Like there's just something nice about that novelty, if you will. Although you're not getting the most power, but the gap is closed a lot with these new Series X and PlayStation 5, where you can experience 4K 60 in a lot of games, and that's great to see, right? So I don't think that's going to change, and I think personally, I would suggest a console. That's what I'd go for, especially if you can get your hands on a Series X, just with Game Pass and everything. It seems like you could either to cut my ramble short, you could spend like $1,500 whatever on a PC, get a couple games, or you could buy a Series X and then buy a handful of games, and you'd be geared up with that and Game Pass, and you'd be gaming for a while. You'd be gaming good for a long while.
Yeah, that's those are all valid points. I don't know. Yeah, thanks for taking my call here.
Of course. We hope we helped you.
Yeah, I'll definitely consider these things, and I just wanted to say, yeah, these call-ins are great. I love this idea and everything. So
it's really fun. Yeah. And hey, of course, if you want, follow up with us, whether it be in another call-in or follow up in a post on a comment. We like to do our on our main show we do before we begin, where we just kind of take follow-ups from the audience. So if you end up making a purchase or something, just say it's you and let us know.
All right. Yeah, I'll definitely be sure to let you guys know what happens.
Okay, cool.
But,
good luck.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. What a nice guy.
Seemed like a nice guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Next up.
All right, Conrad Sordo, how are you? Can you hear us?
Oh, hi. Yeah, I can hear you.
How's it going? Welcome. Thank you for taking the time to do this.
Yeah, well, thanks for hosting a call-in.
Of course, yeah, I'm excited about this. So, we got Ben here with us. You want to go ahead and talk about what's on your mind? What are you looking to chat about?
Yeah. So I've got a question for you. I'm kind of I guess the best way is to describe it as Xbox curious. I'm mostly a PlayStation fan, but I've really been enjoying Defining Duke, and I'm really enjoying hearing you guys, and at the time Carrick and now Cog.
Thank you.
I'm really curious, as somebody who enjoys the PlayStation sort of first-party style of games they got going on, third person, narrative heavy, over the shoulder, kind of a serious tone. Is there an IP that Microsoft has that they could bring back or reboot in such a way that would really appeal to somebody like that?
Yeah, I always, because what's interesting is Microsoft has such a pedigree of first person that it's hard to imagine, because a lot of their third person games, funny enough, they just added it to Game Pass. I saw on the post today was Blinks the Time Sweeper. But what I was getting at is a lot of their third person work, I think of platformers like Conquer, like I said, Blinks. And so they never really had, I don't want to say never, right? A lot of their narrative third person heavy games like Gears of War was one, which I don't think gets enough credit for its storyline, which is really good. But one that they could maybe bring back, they are kind of in the process of bringing back, which is Fable. That was one that I felt also got swept under the radar because it has really fun choices, but it's just not as heavy. It's more lighthearted. They never really had that, Uncharted, if you will. That's why they were shopping around and getting Rise of the Tomb Raider of exclusivity. I was thinking Perfect Dark as well. I imagine that'll be first person, but I don't want to just suddenly rule that out. Maybe they do third person with that. That's an IP they're bringing back currently. Sorry, go on.
I was just saying, I was actually just looking up some gameplay of the older Perfect Dark games today, actually, because it had just crossed my mind, like, oh, what? Because I was curious about what the initiative was doing for a while, and then they showed off Perfect Dark, and then I'm like, okay, what is this? What is this IP? So I've been kind of looking into it, and that looks really interesting. So that could really appeal to me, yeah. And I was actually the guy who also wrote in back in episode 2, asking if I should give Gears of War a shot.
Okay, perfect.
So I've actually been playing that recently, Gears 4, and that's been a lot of fun. Actually,
I was gonna say, have you found yourself enjoying the story at all, or?
At first it took me a while to come around to it, but after I think about in Act 4, I've only started on Gears 4, but come around to when I got to Act 4, I was like, okay, this is actually, like, I'm really interested now, because at first it wasn't grabbing me, and then as I played it more and more, I got more into it, and I'm actually enjoying the characters now too. I really like JD, and obviously Cade. And it's kind of nice. And Old Man Marcus to me is just kind of fun. So so Gears actually is kind of scratching that itch for me for third person kind of narrative heavy gameplay.
Right.
So as a PlayStation fan, so
the thing I look at is with Xbox, like I feel like part of their benefit is a lot of people want them like COD goes just one. Give us just one third person narrative heavy game, right? And I agree with them, right? Like let's get that. And Xbox just said, or really Phil Spencer just said, like, yeah, we're currently working on more narrative games than we ever have in the history of Xbox. And if that's to be true, then I imagine one of them will hit on that sort of PlayStation level thing. Like I think of Hellblade, Senua's Saga, most likely will be something along those lines. I'd be very shocked if it wasn't, but of course I'm just guessing with future work there. But I also think that there's a benefit to Xbox not having it because PlayStation has this one specific slice of games, this one type of game. Where I think that's the beauty of Xbox. And I mean, it speaks more to me is like, I like a lot of different games. I'm of course like a big RPG fan, but I like my shooters. I like my beat 'em ups, my hack and slashes. I like my strategy games. Like there's so many different games I like. And that's what's great about Game Pass and the variety they offer is now you can get, like we were talking about Gears, you can get a Gears Tactics experience now. And I think that variety speaks to the Xbox fan base more, not that PlayStation fans don't like variety, but I mean certainly their exclusives are like one type of game. Ben, was there any IP that I maybe skimmed over or didn't think of that you feel would fit sort of the mold that Conrad's looking at?
I think that, I mean, the things I always want to say are the games that we've had in the past and like we're just wondering where they are. Like I think of Viva Pinata. Like I don't know if that's going to get people back in the ecosystem, but I think it gets people who were excited before and maybe have lapsed as fans to come back. Maybe that's not a console seller. I don't know for sure or not. But there's definitely like, I think of things like that and things like Banjo and all those old classics that just aren't around anymore in the same way.
We talked on an episode of Defining Duke about Banjo coming back and how a remake would be pretty rad for that. Of course,
I agree.
I don't know Banjo as striking the hardcore narrative that some folks are looking for. Maybe they can do something dark with Banjo, but I doubt they would. So I think maybe they leave that be. I think the truth is in a lot of ways they don't have these IP that could fit that mold outside of Hellblade. I think is one, but not to reiterate or repeat, but I just think of like Fable right away. I'm like, oh, that's third person, but it's a lot of uplifting an experience there.
Right.
And so that means they probably got to go and craft some new IP. Maybe who knows?
What a concept!
Yeah.
Well, I am excited about Redfall. That looks interesting. From a conceptual standpoint, obviously we need to see gameplay, but
and you can think of games like Starfield as well, technically, because you have first and third person modes in all those BGS games. Same things with Elder Scrolls 6. I'd be shocked if they locked it into one perspective as they went deeper into a console generation. So you could throw those in the mix. I feel like they have games that are in third person that will be epic, but maybe not in the way that Ghost of Tsushima presents itself on a mountaintop where you see the island of Tsushima smoking and you're like, whoa, can go anywhere and do anything. I don't know if that's going to be, I don't know if they'll be the console for that, which I think is kind of a good thing.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, Conrad.
Still curious, still enjoying Gears, so maybe I'll jump into Xbox.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth the dive. It's certainly a cheap way to do it, right?
Yep, for sure.
All right. Thank you so much for calling in, Conrad, and giving us your time.
Thank you very much. You guys have a great day.
You too.
Matty, I'm going to be really honest with you in the audience here. I was like running 3 different programs and messaging people about their audio and stuff, and I just didn't catch the fact that they wanted to know about a dark third person intense game. So
well, it's just more so. I don't think he specified that. It was more so like as I thought about it, I was like, God of War, Ghost of Tsushima, Horizon. Like, none of these games are uplifting at all.
Right.
And Death Stranding. I'm just like, man, okay, so they do, I guess you could say Spider-Man's in that mix for uplifting.
We like
Uncharted
to be miserable.
Yeah. Dude, misery drives conflict and it keeps the player's interest. So, I mean, I think looking at it, I think it was a really good question because as we dug deeper, we realized like, well, hey, hold on.
Yeah,
I don't know if Xbox really has the answer right now.
for sure.
I do. I'm gonna put my money on Hellblade though. That's the one I feel pretty good about being that sort of PlayStation style narrative third person experience, because it started off as a PlayStation exclusive. I just realized that.
Yeah.
Oh
Well, even when they have the original IP, it's not even original IP.
Yeah. Money's great.
That's right.
All right, let's get someone else in. All right, Crazy Herb, can you hear us?
I can.
Welcome. Long-time patron Herb. Oh my gosh. It's great to talk to you again.
I know, it's been a hot second since I got to talk to you. How are you guys doing?
We're doing well, man. And I just want to let the audience know you've been a guest on Ham Radio before. So this is a full circle moment for sure.
Oh shucks, I'm surprised you remembered that.
Absolutely. My memory is, as Ben will know, a sponge. So
See.
Herb, what's on your mind, man? How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Just kind of chilling, dealing with Discord being such a beautifully functioning application.
Of course. Yes.
But,
what do you want to talk about today?
I was thinking, I've been feeling lately the call of the sea specifically, not the game, the Call of the Sea, but the game Sea of Thieves.
Oh, good thing we got Ben here. I can go take a piss break now.
No, see, this is for you, Matty. This is more of a personal kind of plea, and for many others maybe out there listening who haven't touched the game since maybe it launched, because I was in a very similar boat. Pardon the pun.
Oh no! Oh no! Go on.
And so I was just gonna say the game is a underrated, I feel, aspect of Xbox current slate, in that it offers something you really can't get from any other video game out there. Like it's this weird combination of something like VR chat and like strategic combat. And like to put that, not just to sell the game, but I want to kind of give a 2-second, like I jumped in this way back when it launched, and I had the same reaction to everybody else. I was like, what do you do? And for you, because I've heard you talk about maybe giving it a try again, I would recommend, if you can find somebody, I'm not going to call out anybody specifically who you might know or don't know who knows the game, but if you find somebody who can kind of show you what you do and how you do it, because there's a learning curve.
Yeah.
But once it clicks, once this loop of robbing and sailing and strategically outmaneuvering your enemies and then dominating your foes and sometimes getting dominated. Once it clicks, once this dynamic system of kill or be killed clicks, I think there's really something there, and I think that's why it's stuck around and gets its hooks in people.
Right.
And one of the things I'll say, and I don't think I hear people talk about this enough, is it's such an easy game to jump into. I mean, after you learn it, of course, there is a learning curve, but afterwards you don't have to it doesn't. I don't know. I don't feel FOMO with the game because it's more gameplay driven than loot driven, I feel. So you don't have to worry about the Destiny type FOMO,
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a really good point. I think that makes it a lot more appealing for people like myself, because I don't mind these service games in general, not to pull us off track, because I know where you're going with it, but I just, part of the thing I don't like about these service games, even MMORPGs, is I like to play them and they're very good games, but I don't like that if I miss the boat, then that's it. I've officially missed out on content. Yeah. Yeah. So so then I got two Sea of Thieves experts here. How are we feeling about A Pirate's Life? And the reason I ask that is this the jump in point for people like myself who are looking for I can go and do a specific type of content? Because my gripe with Sea of Thieves, I wouldn't even call it a gripe, because I think it's a game's strength. It's just something that doesn't quite gel with me, is that I want to, last time I played it earlier this year, my friends and I were just sailing around, honestly harassing people. We were yelling through the megaphone, dock your ship, we're going to take you down. You're just trying to get someone to do something, right? And they're just sailing away from us. They won't engage. For me, the best part about Sea of Thieves is when you have those dynamic encounters. You're like, whoa, and we got a ghost ship over there, and we got this player over here. You got players diving into the water, coming up on the ship, anchoring each other so that they're easy targets. Those are the best moments, right? And I guess those moments in between are what build up to make those moments so great. But I just want to know, do you think now with actual story content, if you will, that you can go and complete. If now's a good time for someone like myself to dive in, because there is, I want to say, something to experience, because that really sells short the rest of the game. But I imagine you understand what I'm getting at.
Yes, absolutely. So to that, I would say A Pirate's Life is very appealing to new players from a you can jump in and kind of get a feel for the game. But like you said, those moments where you're hunting down other players and you have to like grab their anchor or they try to board you and you're trying to dodge their cannons, those kind of dynamic moments, which like now they have these new systems since launch, like emissaries and other things that push you to kind of engage the game in specific roles. So whether it be merchant or hunting other ships or being somebody who just wants gold, they have these systems now that really facilitate that gameplay. But you don't really get that specific line of Sea of Thieves gameplay from Pirate's Life. Pirate's Life is more single player or co-op focused, but it's more about the story and like kind of these nice set pieces and like beautiful areas to explore and puzzles to solve. It's more like I hesitate to call it a puzzle game, but it's very puzzle and then combat kind of focused with these cool like story stuff splintered or sprinkled in a way that Sea of Thieves hasn't done before. So it's definitely appealing to new players, but I will say I don't know that it like the reason that people stick around isn't felt as strongly in Pirate's Life. Whereas it's more of like you can pick it up, play it, and then you'd be like, oh, that was pretty fun, and then move on. But unless you kind of engage in the systems that facilitate kind of the moments where you jump on and there's 5 people running Reaper, which is like the emissary that people use to hunt people. And you can see them all on the map. And so you're like, okay, these guys they just want to fight. So if you want to fight, you go right to those guys.
Is this new and recently added? Sorry, not to interrupt.
It's not super recent, but it is new from launch. So it was new for me when I had jumped back in
Maybe I
with
just
other players.
Because I did play in, I want to say February or March is when I hopped in for some time and played. It's not a bad game, right? Like I always try to emphasize that to people when I say like I don't play much Sea of Thieves, is it's not because I dislike it. It's more so when you get those engagements, it's so fun that you want more of that. For me, I think it's one of the most, I would go to the point of saying it's one of the most fun PvP experiences and unique, definitely PvP experiences you can have in a video game right now. Like it really is superb on that front. It's just that like, it's not a game that I want matchmaking in. Like they're doing the right thing. It's just that you got to hope you encounter the right players. And so that's sort of the double-edged sword of this game, is hoping you'll find a player group that wants to do what I'm doing, which is like, let's fight. Like, let's just try to fuck each other over effectively.
Yes. Yeah. I would say, sorry to cut you off there, but I would say that that A Pirate's Life is very good for getting people into the ecosystem of the game. And then, of course, there are all the other tall tales and story-related stuff you can do that have been in there for a little while. But if that's what people do and they think that's the whole game, then they will probably be disappointed. But it might be a good gateway to get them in order to find out what the rest of the game is like. But sorry to cut you off. Yeah.
No, that's a very good point. I'm not trying to downplay it because I think Pirate's Life is fantastic. From a story point, I honestly think it's better than the last 2 Pirates movies. Like it's more engaging to me because they kind of just embrace the whole fun aspect and don't get bogged down with any like boring stuff. But yeah, I think though for you, Matty, those moments that you're hunting for are much easier now. And if you have somebody who can explain and show you kind of the way the emissary system works, because I think a lot of new players, it doesn't tell you really simply how that stuff works. Unfortunately, I mean, that's the biggest problem I feel with the game, is the learning curve is there. And even for me, jumping back in with a fair amount of experience, I was like, whoa, there's a lot going on here. And I had to kind of play it a bunch with some people who knew what they were doing, and they had to put up with me being the baby running around like a toddler waving the sword around. But after you learn kind of the emissary system and how it all works, it really does help you facilitate finding those guys who just want to have fun and shoot each other and have these like crazy ship to ship combat sections. And at the end of the day, though, you're right. There's an RNG aspect where you sometimes will just run into players who either have no idea what they're doing, which can be fun because they're super easy to sync, or people who are the sweaty hardcore who just dominate you. And of course, you'll run into toxic players in any multiplayer game, and unfortunately, Sea of Thieves is no exception. But yeah, I mean, it's just something that I don't know. Lately, I've been becoming more and more allured by because of the, like you said, and I was just talking about earlier, is it when you get those moments, it's no other game really, facilitates that.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It's a great looking game. It's definitely fun. It's something I've been wanting to get into more and more. I think I suck with consistency with some of these service games. I was thinking about getting back into, it sounds a little off topic, but I swear it'll all loop back. I was thinking about getting back into Star Wars: The Old Republic. And I was looking at it and going like, man, like I just don't stick with these games. And part of it's like a lack of faith in myself. So that's half of it. That's half the battle. But the other part of it is that, I think of it this way. It's like, could I play 90 hours of Sea of Thieves or could I play like 3 games? And so I almost every time would pick 3 games. Just because number one, I think that's best for my coverage and my channel, just on a career level, just having those experiences under your belt. Not that 90 hours of Sea of Thieves is worthless, by the way, but I'm more so saying, like, for me, I think diversity speaks to my content. But also that I might find a new series I really like and I'll spend tons of hours in that. So to me, that's always been the pull, but I have these urges at times, right? These itches to like get into that. I want to have that game kind of like Ben has, where like Ben's just like Sea of Thieves in between everything, right? Like just no releases, Sea of Thieves time. Kind of want something like that, right? Or Destiny 2 for Dustin, like that in-betweener game. I don't have that. And so I've been searching for it for a while, and I don't know quite what it'll be. But that puts more legitimacy, on the title that becomes that. When I start parading around about a service title, that's when you know.
Yeah.
That's when you know.
Good point.
Anyway, Crazy Herb, it's great talking to you again. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time today to talk Sea of Thieves.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Glad we were able to get it to work.
Absolutely. Thank you, man. Be well.
Yeah.
Oh, I cut him off a little early there. I'm sorry.
How could you?
Okay, two things really quick. One is that, unfortunately for me, my in-between games are Destiny 2 and Sea of Thieves. So I have 2 service games that are my in-between games. No. And the second thing is, just full disclosure, I know Crazy Herb, and I've played Sea of Thieves with him, but I really did not put him up to that, and I definitely thought he was going to talk about Halo because that's all he ever talks about to me.
I thought so too. Right when I saw him pop in, I was like, "Oh, it's going to be Halo." Like I thought for sure I was in for a Halo question. We said Sea of Thieves, I almost recoiled. I was like, "What?"
Yeah. All right, ready for the next one?
Yep. Got my water sip in. We're good.
Good deal.
Let's do it. Edwin Castillo, can you hear us?
Matty, I can hear you.
Excellent.
I'm curious. Ben, are you speaking? I want to know what the cadence is with this episode.
So Matty's the host, but of course, if you have something that I can speak to, he'll pitch it to me, and start with him though.
All right, fair enough. Matty, how's the episode been so far? How are you feeling about this?
I'm feeling pretty good. I feel like you're setting up to troll me here, though. Just by the line of questioning. What's the cadence? How are you feeling so far? It's like, all right.
No, don't worry.
Let's hear it.
I was going to try and take it seriously, I was going to open up by saying Xbox has no games, but then I thought that's too much of an obvious joke. I'm not going to do that. But to be fair, I just did, so it counts. What I wanted to ask you was a rather specific question for me because it was the only thing I can think of. Okay. So pretty much, I had an Xbox One S. Hated the thing. For some reason, it wouldn't even let me play 4K Blu-rays, which was the entire reason I bought it. I had 2 of them. Different ones. So trust me, it's just maybe I was about to say Bezos. Maybe Bill Gates understands how I am, so he decided to screw with me, so it didn't work properly. Moving on from that, I got a bitchin' PC because I told myself, you know what? I'm going to use a computer more than anything else. If I just put in all the money, get a 3070 in it, I'll be fine. So I did that. So to me, Xbox isn't a platform. It's just an app on my desktop. Going off of that now, so the basis of my question before we get there, do you agree with me in saying that Xbox probably putting all their games on PC, not exactly desperation, that's probably too strong of a word, but had they not been in second place compared to Sony, they wouldn't have put their games on PC? So at least that's a basis before moving on.
Yeah, I'll try to keep the answer short then, since you have more to it. I think they may have, if they had games, number one, but more games of quality, number two, I think they would have taken the PlayStation route where they could double dip, but effectively you couldn't even double dip because the launches were so infrequent that I think they needed more platforms. And I guess in the end of the day, I'm happy it worked out the way it did because, I think just the simultaneous launches on both platforms means that when a game comes exclusively to Xbox, it's not as walled off as a PlayStation 1. When you hear Xbox exclusive, it's on PC too. You can get it through Game Pass. You can stream it maybe. I just think there's so many more lines of accessibility that while they probably wouldn't have traditionally taken this route, I'm happy it rolled out this way because it just ultimately, I think, led to a better thing where like the Bethesda acquisition would have been hell on earth if it was PlayStation, I think, because it was just, it's like it's on the console and that's it. Yeah. Ben, do you agree with that line of thinking?
I think so. I think it does have a little bit to do with the releases they had or didn't have, as the case may be. But honestly, I think even if they had a ton of releases, it was a smart move because somebody who didn't, I had an Xbox One and I just recently got a Series console, but
you're welcome.
Yeah, Edwin actually helped me procure it, by the way.
No way. This episode has a lot of connections.
Well, right. I have connections to everybody in the Discord, to be quite fair. So, yeah. So, but I think that it's really smart because, like, I'm now a game. I mean, I have been for a long time, but I'm a Game Pass subscriber, and I didn't have an Xbox, but they still got that $15 a month out of me for being a subscriber. So, I think it would have been smart, but I do think that the no games led to it.
Yeah.
So the reason that I start off with that, if we all agree with that, so let's just say this generation, look, we're going into fantasy land, we're going into assumptions. Let's just assume that the Series X is the greatest console to have ever existed. It demolishes Sony and they end up going Sega. They keep going a generation or two. Do you think there's ever a chance that they decide to roll back on PC and go, well, at this point, we don't need PC. We are now the top dog. We can just tell everyone to go buy our console because that makes us more money at the end of it than a console. I mean, do you ever see a situation where Xbox starts getting cocky and rolls it back?
Yeah, I actually do, but I don't know if it would be cockiness, but more so staggering it because you already see with how PC Game Pass was. There were a lot of complaints in the beginning of the year because even like EA Play wasn't on PC Game Pass for a while. I mean, it's an afterthought now because so much has come since, but fans had to wait 3 months to get that going. And they had to add the games to the Windows Store and then list them there and bring them into EA Play. And then they create EA Desktop. Like there was so many workarounds to get it going. You understood why it took a while. But in a lot of ways, you see these big Game Pass editions like Outriders, first day one, AAA, third-party game, comes to Game Pass and it's console only. So there was hype, but it was, people were more so hyped about the deal and not that PC fans were also getting it. Mm-hmm. So I think in a lot of ways, while Xbox has prioritized PC, I think they have shown that they're not, I want to say not fully committed, but there are still a lot more hangups on the PC experience compared to console.
Yeah, still second-class citizens.
Yes, and it really, to me, shows that they're there until they don't need to be there at times. I think it would be pretty disastrous for them if they tried to walk it back. So what I envision is if they start becoming the first place console, which I think is very well possible, I think when that starts happening, either they do one or two things, right? They go, well, our game plan got us here. Let's keep doing that. Or you sort of roll back and go, well, now we're at a quality standpoint where, hey, we've got Obsidian, we've got Double Fine, we've got all these different companies doing great stuff. Now we can start to stagger our releases and double dip on consumers. Now, if you're a Game Pass subscriber, that's like a non-existent thing, right? Like you can't double dip someone who's already subscribed to a service where the game will be available on it both times. But for those who are purchasing, you could double dip on them. And I guess there's always that availability. It's just a difference in release window. But I just feel like it almost clashes at the same time with how they already developed their games. So that pipeline to reverse that would take a number of years too, where it'd have to be deliberate at that point in time.
So just now that we're in this universe, what does Game Pass look like if they were number one? I mean, do they just keep the course? I mean, what does that look like?
To me, a number one, first place Xbox with Game Pass is they're only doing first party releases with indies as kind of the gap filler. I don't think they spend big anymore once that happens. Once you're in first place, you stand pat. We've seen it happen generation over generation over generation, right? Xbox was dominating 360. The only reason PlayStation, I feel, caught up was because they stopped producing the 360 into its life cycle.
Yeah.
And so PlayStation was able to just sell a ton of units and catch up eventually. Then Xbox gets super complacent with Xbox One. I don't think PlayStation's being as complacent this generation as people are saying, but they have definitely taken their foot off the gas compared to the PS4. So we've seen it happen generation over generation. And then there's Nintendo over there on their own planet being like super fucking complacent, just literally abusing their fans. That's besides the point. What I'm saying
I
is,
like the one that hit me, okay?
yeah, I know a lot of people seem to, and especially their wallets. But I just feel like you see generation over generation, the same habits repeat no matter who's in charge. That maybe Phil has such a tight grip on his group that if they take that first place spot, like, yeah, maybe they will just stay the same. I just don't envision it always being that way. I think it's almost naive to think that. If they want to prove me wrong, sure, but I think it's naive to believe that they would stay the exact same. You know, there's a hunger for Xbox. Like everyone can see they smell blood in the water right now, the way they're playing, where I think, you know, that's why they're spending that money to get Game Pass to grow. Once Game Pass has grown into this recurrent model that once they're at like 100 million subs and you're collecting like $150 million a month from subscribers of Game Pass Ultimate, it's like, well, all right, like the service kind of just is a money printer now for us. Mm-hmm. And do we need to invest as deeply? So I think, yeah, once they're in first place, you're going to start to see either less third-party deals, but when they happen, they should be on a much larger basis. That's what I think should happen. It's like, okay, now you have a player base so large and you have so much money coming into the service that a lot of people talk about, say, Cyberpunk 2077 coming to Game Pass before its launch. And that would be something that would be feasible to me now. I didn't think that was possible back then. But if you're talking like we're at 150 or 100 million members, $15 a month still, I think those big AAA games now deserve a spot on Game Pass where you could almost say, hey, don't worry about retail sales. They'll come. We're going to pay you X amount of money and get you on the service day one. Ben, do you agree with any of this?
I think so. I think that if they get in first place, you know, whether it's actually in first place or in the public eye, and they were to do something like that, though, that might put them back in second place because I think so many people are hardcore on Xbox right now. Specifically, I'm talking about myself and people like me because they're doing all these cool things. And like for me, if they took that incentive away from me for Game Pass for PC, hey, maybe I let my subscription lapse for a month sometimes here and there because there's nothing I really want to play that's new or whatever. With the persistent games, that may not really be as much of an issue. So I think you're probably right in that they might try that, but I do think there's going to be some blowback if they do. And it almost seems to me like once you're on top, why change it up? You know, I mean, maybe they do, and they've had missteps in the past, but like, yeah, if they're already winning, then maybe you just keep doing the same thing so that they continue to win.
Well, yeah, because the way I envision it is, or not the way I envision it, but the way I think a lot of consumers envision it is once Xbox is at the top, now they've got even more money and they're going to start to get everything. Like right now we're seeing Outriders and MLB The Show. And it's like, now they're going to get this game and that game and that game because they got way more. And I'm like, I think they're just going to really quality control. Like you're not going to see them reach for an Outriders. You're not going to see them reach for a Dark Alliance. Like you're not going to see that anymore. And I think that'll be better for the service. Right now it makes sense because get those day one games in. Clearly don't bother quality checking them as much. Just make sure you're getting a day one game in because it's exciting. It's money saved. And some people would rather play a broken game and know they save money inherently through the service than buying it outright. But I think as time goes on, my expectations rise with the idea of like, okay, I'll take a couple less Game Pass games. Maybe you fill it in with some indies. Like we got Death's Door coming out this week, which looks fantastic. You fill that in with also like...
is that on Game Pass?
I don't
think so.
I don't think it is. No, but it's a console exclusive, which is really surprising to see. Where was I going with this?
Sorry, I derailed you.
No, you're totally fine.
I can fill in if you need me to.
No, by all means. Yeah, I was rambling at that point anyway.
Okay. For me, honestly, the fact that you're talking about Xbox getting to a point where Xbox Game Pass becomes a literal title, where it's literally just Xbox games, I'm not going to lie, that literally has me worried. Not literally. I hate the fact that I use it. Moving on. I kind of have this little worry that I don't want them to get to a Netflix point where when you think of Netflix in its peak from like 2010 to like 2014, most people liked Netflix because it had all of the stuff that everyone didn't have available. So,
Yeah.
oh, I want the Social Network because I can't find it on DVD or something. Oh, they have Breaking Bad because, I missed last week's episode. Nowadays,
Yeah.
Netflix really isn't that. Netflix is, hey, do you want to watch Russian Doll? Hey, do you want to watch the best cooking show that no one ever paid attention to? Where at this point, Netflix is just throwing shit at the wall and hoping that something sticks. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I don't think there's anything that's coming out of Netflix that's ever like, oh, yeah, that was the best TV show I've watched. Most of them, it's like, yeah, that was fine. I'm worried about that. But then
I
again,
think that's
I'm gonna show my hand and say it's not like there's many Xbox games I care about. So
Okay.
sorry, I have to show my hand.
No, that's
it's
totally
one
fine.
of those things that, as someone who likes studying the industry to some degree, I'm scared of that potentially being an endpoint. Continue.
Yeah, and no, I was gonna say I think your fear is 100% warranted because every service that's ever existed has had its lulls, and we really have yet to see a Game Pass lull and what that looks and feels like, where either they just can't get deals done, like no one's really interested, or they do get deals done and they start to have like a number of Dark Alliances in a row. I've had my own worries, speaking of Dark Alliance, where I talk about the quality of some of these day one Game Pass games. They've done 3 so far. And 2 of them have been pretty rough at launch. We can talk all day about Outriders server connectivity, but that game was super buggy. And so, I worry about that slippery slope of, hey, what happens if that level of quality continues? Do you do more harm to the service long term? I'm thinking where everyone's going to eventually have an experience of like, I remember playing this really busted game. Some will be appreciative that they've saved money, but I think it's fair for the consumer to expect Xbox to quality check some of these games. It's not their responsibility to make sure they're up to quality, but it's their responsibility to play it and go, this doesn't fucking suck. This does actually work. I think that's super important. So that's my worry. And I think it can carry into yours of, do they get complacent on another front? So I think it's 100% reasonable to sit there and go like, even as someone who's just studying the industry, like I want them to sort of keep up that hunger. And I will say one thing in Xbox's defense is right now it's hard to imagine that group of people running the Xbox team to get complacent when they finally, if they do, get to that number 1 spot, because they really spent a whole generation getting the floor wiped with them, and only now have just started to crawl back into it. And then once you finally get there, if you immediately get cocky, it's like, it literally must be just a generational mindset at that point. It's like, yep, we've done it. We're better than them now. And rest easy. And that's it. So your worries are totally legitimate. I'm here to tell you that.
Ben, I'm curious, do you have any opinions about that before I go in a different direction? At least, still related, not completely direct.
Well, we do have other callers we need to move on to, but
fair enough.
Do I have any opinions? But I don't really think I have anything to add to what Matty was saying there. Yeah.
Fair enough. Then the only thing I will say is that, at least from what I remember, is that, well, then again, I feel like I may be biased because you always look at the past fondly. I think that maybe the PlayStation Plus selection was better on PS3 than it was on PS4, to the point that now I'm pretty sure that if anyone has a bad month on PlayStation Plus, they're not exactly canceling it. I mean, because there's still other things that they want to keep it. So I wouldn't be shocked if, honestly, that just seems like the trajectory for services. At some point, they just provide you with such a nice deal that once you get in, the idea is, well, at that point, it becomes cable. I just like that it's around, and I like that I know it's there. So,
yeah, there's a chance you might find something you like. That's a really good point about PS Plus.
And that's where I'm at with Netflix, just to your point earlier. So, yeah. Cool.
Yeah, that's what I worry. All right, from here, I've taken enough time. Carry on. I'm probably going to go do something else now.
All right, Edwin, thank you so much for the great line of questioning.
No problem. Like I said, I try to troll only through text. Through voice, I try to be nicer.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, man. Nice guy. At least in call.
He's an interesting guy. Okay, we won't give Edwin too much credit, but occasionally he has a day.
Yeah. Finley Ghost, welcome.
Hello. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. What is on your mind?
Okay, so I don't know if you were there at all last night on Twitter. Dustin did a Spaces thing, and I thought that it would be hilarious to ask him to rank every single person in the Last Stand Media family.
Oh, no.
So I wanted to do the same for you guys if you're up for it.
Sure.
And,
Now the question is, where did Dustin rank me?
So that's I was gonna go ahead and let you know what Dustin did. So do you want me to start from first place to last or last to first?
Let's do last to first.
Okay, that's where the great thing comes in. Maddie, you are dead last.
What? I gave this
rough?
guy a seat on ham radio and I'm last?
You guys can hash it out on your own time if you want. And then we have Colin at number 6 and Ben, you're number 5, kind of in the middle, not bad. He gave Dagan and Chris both tying number 3 spots, but he said Dagan first, so I'm going to say Dagan's number 3 and Chris is number 4, and then number 2 with Cog and number 1 with Micah. So those are Dustin's rankings.
What's going on with that?
Yeah.
Ben, I'm a little. I think we need to interrogate Dustin after this and find out what has happened.
I'll actually see him tonight, so I can just beat him with a sack of oranges or something if you want.
Yeah, do that. Give him an extra swing for me because last play. So, all right, let me start off with this, Finley. Dustin's automatically in last place as a retaliation, right? Like that's Dustin's the bottom of the barrel. He sucks. I don't think I need to explain it any further than that.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty clear to me. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna put Dagan at number 5 because I've never spoken to Dagan, so I can't really, I like he's not worse than Dustin. I know that already, but that's about all I can really discern from Dagan, right?
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
I'm trying
but that's okay.
Yeah. Right. I'm gonna put. Let's see here. Who else we got? Okay. We're gonna put number 4. I'm gonna do Micah. We're familiarizing with each other. Let me take that back. We're gonna put Chris at number 4. Chris is my incidental neighbor. I appreciate him on that level, and I'm sure I'll see much more of him.
Okay.
Ben, we're gonna put it. Hold on. We're gonna put Micah at number 3. The reason we're doing Micah at 3 is because she understands one thing about me. And that's that microwavable pasta is really fucking good.
Mm-hmm.
If you have the steamers. That is super important, right?
Yeah.
Now, I appreciate Micah's sense of humor. I'll throw that out there too. She's a little twisted, right? Like she's
warped.
Like she put her foot in a sink and then walked around Colin's house. I thought that was a little strange, but I can only appreciate that level of strangeness. Number 2, Colin. Colin gave me the opportunity. I'll be real about that, right? I appreciate Colin for all he's done for me. Ben, I'm not doing this because you're here, but you're number 1 because you've adjusted so much for me, and I appreciate that beyond words.
I was gonna say if I was anywhere below 3, like I'm leaving more and mess ups into your edits.
I was gonna say I had to be wise about this, right? This is a strategic move, but it is genuine, right? Ben helps me out tremendously, and I try to always shout out Ben whenever I can on the show because he makes the wheels go around here. So absolutely, Ben, number 1. I'm being legitimate with that. And I'm legitimate with Dustin at last place. That's a problem. That's a major problem.
Well, it only makes sense. He had it coming. Now, I will tell you, you are missing one person. You're missing Cog.
Oh, my gosh. Cog will be 1A.
Yeah, he can be tied with me. Yeah, that's a perfect.
Cog would be up there in the top 3. Probably like you move Micah down 1 to 4 and then put Cog in 3 because Cog, stepped up at a pretty tough time. He filled in exceptionally. He made his presence felt. He's an honorable guy, super respectful, and
he's so handsome too.
I know, right?
Yeah,
got good energy
he brings.
He's a top-notch guy, and I am honored to share a show with him for real. And so, I apologize to Cog for forgetting him. It's still fresh to me, right?
I'll go ahead and put him straight up in number 2 instead of 1A because you did forget him. Now, Ben, where would you rank everybody?
I think. I mean, that's tough. I think Micah's last, actually.
Wow.
Specifically because of the sock water thing.
Okay.
And then everybody except for me and Maddie goes directly in the middle. You can rank them however you want, but Maddie and I are at the top. Everybody else is in the middle. Micah's last.
Well, okay. So if you guys are at the top, well, you can't rank yourself. So I guess I'll just put Maddie at the top.
Okay. Yeah, that works. Yeah. I think that makes sense. Yeah. Like Dustin put Maddie at the bottom. So Maddie put Dustin at the bottom. Matty put me at the top, so I put Matty at the top. That works.
That makes sense. And then I'm just straight up gonna move. That's not fair. I could do it if you really want me to just put anyone where you want me to.
Yeah.
Or you could just speed run it real quick.
I think it's Matty is number 1.
Okay.
Everybody else is tied for 2, and Micah is last 3. However you want to do that.
That's rough. Okay.
Yeah. And specifically, there needs to be an asterisk specifically because of the wet sock thing. That's why. That's the only reason. Everything else about it is great except for that one thing.
I see. So if I can get her to recant her whole wet sock thing, then you would put her number 2, I'm assuming.
She'd be tied with everybody else except for Matt. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll go ahead and put your bogus rankings together, and then I'll try to get everyone else's rankings and
right.
see who
Make
actually
a master
ranks.
list.
Yeah, I'm curious.
List,
I'm curious where we all fall. This was a good question because I realized how much Last Stand has grown. Right. Like I remember it was Dustin doing the behind the scenes work with Colin and Chris, and now. We've grown up so much that I think of it now as kind of crazy. I forgot people and I will say everyone here is exceptional. So
absolutely
big reason why I'm here. But except Dustin. Dustin's a little less than.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Sweet deal. Well, thanks for taking my call. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day.
Of course, Finley. Thank you.
Yeah. Take it easy.
Yeah.
Interesting question.
That is an interesting question. I don't want to dice again. Like I have spoken to everyone on the team, but like there are people I'm less familiar with. I guess you said you haven't spoken to Dagan, but you'll get to actually physically meet him in person.
That's
even hug him if you want here in like a month or so.
Yeah, so. I should do that, right? Like I should accelerate Dagan and I's relationship to a new level immediately. Like I'm not going to hug anyone. I'll shake hands and I'll hug Dagan.
Right.
And you'll remember that.
You could go to the park and have like a romantic picnic and whatever you want to do. It's totally
like I'll ask him questions first before everyone else. I'll be like, Dagan, what are your thoughts on that? And I'll really ramp that up to a number 3. You're extremely fast.
You're like, Dagan, what are your thoughts? And then he gives his thoughts, and you're like, everybody else at the same time, please give your thoughts because you don't matter as much. All right, let's move ahead here.
All right. How much more time do we have?
A little bit.
Cool. David, hello.
Hello, Matty. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. We got Ben here with us. What is on your mind? What are you itching to talk about?
Hey, Ben. Basically, I just had a really quick question regarding Xbox's kind of studio acquisitions. Basically, my question is, do you think there's a danger that with all the studios Microsoft has been acquiring, the quote-unquote Xbox first-party game will lose some of its credibility? Because, with Sony's PlayStation success arguably being in large part due to its consistently great first-party titles, could Xbox and Microsoft suffer if their first-party becomes associated with, almost a coin flip of quality?
Yeah, and it kind of already is in that position, so we can really speak to that, where you sometimes get Sunset Overdrive, and then other times you'll get a Recore. It's like, what is this game, right? I say all due respect, but just it is at a coin flip, I think, now. I think they've acquired the right talent where you can trust their output more. What people are also going to learn is a lot of folks are excited about their acquisitions now and in the future. But as you bring in more, they're only going to fail more often, not because they're bringing in bad talent, but just you're just by law of numbers, like you have a higher chance to fail across some of your studios. And so I think in turn, you've got this perspective across the industry of PlayStation, tight number of studios, delicately managed, and they put out these absolute bangers more often than not. Like even with their biggest miss with Days Gone, I mean, I know for a fact that an Xbox game that would have been like a 5 or a 6 for a lot of outlets, but it got its 70s and 80s. But even then, on its biggest miss, Days Gone wasn't a bad game at all. And so I think that speaks to PlayStation's quality. Where Xbox, I think they can get into a little bit of mud with that as they already are. And that's why I'm very careful about who I say, like, oh, I'd like to see them wrap this company up. A lot of people want them to go get Avalanche. And I'm like, why? That's a studio that's made Just Cause, Rage 2. I love Rage 2, but look, it's not like this stellar, high console quality system selling game. They're just not known for that. And we'll see how Contraband turns out. But Yeah, more to your question is, I personally believe that, yeah, as long as they can get these studios that can manage themselves, then there's a headache removed there where they can maybe hope to keep up that quality. They've been on a good run lately with the likes of Flight Simulator. We saw Death's Door reviewed really well. Gears Tactics reviewed really well in 2020. Ori reviewed really well. And now they're getting to the point where they're going to start to do more frequent launches, and it's going to be those big studios they acquired in like 2018, 2019. And the other thing, sorry, I'm rambling a little bit here, but I look at some of the studios that they already had under their belt that have done these multi-platform launches because they want to take them away from other consoles. And like Wasteland 3 is literally one of the best RPGs I've ever played. Like, it's mind-boggling how much spiderwebbing there is in that game. I just previewed Psychonauts 2, and I was really impressed by this game. These are all multi-plat launches that are definitely being enhanced by Xbox's money being in there. But they also have had some really good launches that they're not getting credit for because they're not exclusive launches. So there's also that monkey wrench in all of it. Ben, what do you think of some of this?
I think everything you said there is dead on. And I think really when you come back to the crux of the question is, could they be relegated to or looked down upon? It all depends on the games, right? It's all, if everyone that comes out is a banger, or at least better than average, nobody's going to think anything worse of them. If they have like a third of the games that are subpar or even not great, then yeah, I think that's a possibility. And you realistically, like, we can't as consumers, but we know we will expect somebody every time to put out the best game ever made. But that is how we look at things. So they're going to have to, they really have something to prove. And I think they're doing a good job at proving it. But I think if they have a few stinkers in there, it's going to, that perception is going to be there for a long time then.
Sorry, Manny. I was just going to say, off of Ben's point there about, as consumers, we can't be expected to, we can't expect Xbox to produce banger after banger or whatever. Yeah. My question is while we can't, expect them to do that, if you look at, from a PlayStation perspective, like you said, Matty, really only Days Gone is the only first party game they've put out which hasn't been super highly critically acclaimed. So I wonder if, while we can't expect Xbox to release banger after banger, maybe the reason why they haven't been as competitive with Sony is because they're not doing that. So my real kind of thought process is, if Xbox really want to take over Sony in terms of like the competitive nature of the console wars, quote unquote, I hate that term, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Is whether the strategy they're on right now, where they're kind of just throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks in the hope that they get a 10 out of 10 every 6 months or whatever, whether that's really going to help them in the long run or whether it's just going to help them financially,
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to touch on Game Pass as well. And the reason I wanted to throw it out there is I've noticed games that are marketed closely to Xbox start to have an association with that platform. And I think in turn that can either lift up the Xbox image or tear it down a little bit, depending on the quality of Game Pass day one launches. So this wasn't a Game Pass game, but I think of a situation like Scarlet Nexus, where that's a perfect example of when you market too closely to Xbox and you're not hearing much about the game that people expect it to be a Game Pass game. And it just didn't have the noise around it that I think it deserved. It looks like a great game. From what I've played, I've really liked it. I don't know what Colin's thoughts are on it, because I know he's played much more of it.
I think he had a pretty good amount of things to say about it that were positive.
Okay, yeah, and it just looked like that type of game. Like, it looked pretty strong. But then you think of someone like myself, and I know others share this sentiment. We talked about it a lot on this episode, so I'll keep it brief. But you look at some of the Game Pass editions like Dark Alliance, and it can create a negative view for Xbox and its quality control in general, beyond their first party, right? Where it's like, well, this is just a money deal or a promotion deal. We're not even looking at your first party, and you've sort of dropped the ball here. And that can be excused away or taken to a deeper level, depending on really who you are and how you think. But yeah, I think it goes beyond their first party, which is why I don't think they'll ever quite have the perception that PlayStation has, because they just are spread much further than them. They And I don't mean that in a way like they're trying to do too much. Just they have so much more going on than PlayStation across multiple platforms and multiple services that I don't really anticipate Xbox suddenly dethroning PlayStation, especially because the industry's morphed the conversation to Xbox does this, this, and that, while PlayStation does this, this, and that. Like they've been categorized now. So you can't take away that category from PlayStation, especially after a generation-long heritage being established of just quality exclusives one after the other. But even if they started to drop stinkers, I don't think people would take away, well, PlayStation is the exclusive king, right? We know they have it in them if they started to drop bad ones. Whereas Xbox, like I said, I think even if they started to do really good exclusives, I think what's going to happen is they're going to just be compared to PlayStation rather than overtaking them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. I think you're right.
I think you have the weird thing too, like with Outriders. I played Outriders on Steam on PC, but I still, like, in my head, even though I know a lot about video games in the industry, I still in my head I'm like, oh, that was an Xbox game. Well, it wasn't. It just was on Game Pass and it was day one, But like, so there is that association that you're right.
Absolutely.
You keep going back to that they have to put out quality content and not have bad quality control, or they're going to get associated with games that aren't even theirs, but they're just providing a way for people to play them.
Yeah,
so,
and I think, just to add on that, I do believe that Xbox not being, I think they have the potential to hit the level of quality PlayStation has. But one thing that PlayStation's effectively done, and I do believe Colin's spoken on this, but I agree as well, is I do think that PlayStation's painting themselves in a corner where when you charge $70 for Returnal, we'll say, right? And some people were like, why is this $70? I don't quite get it. And then you've got to charge $70 for Ratchet. And if you start to charge below that price tag, it looks less than, where Xbox has the ability right now to say, like, this is a $50 game. This is a $60 game. This is just based off all the companies they own and can invest in and deals that they can strike, where I almost don't want them to reach that point. I think there's something attractive about having multiple tiers of quality within exclusives. Like Psychonauts 2, I liked what I played of it. I played only an hour and a half of it, but if they tried to sell it for $70, my thought process would have been different. Knowing it's a $60 game, that changes things, right? And so I like that they have sort of a wide range of exclusives and studios that they can tap into, and that they're not all this heavy-hitting AAA budget, multi-million-dollar investment. Like, it's just, sometimes they're these quirky, fun games. And so I think where they sit is actually a pretty good position, so long as they can use the talent to the best of their abilities and make sure the games are, well, as the most important thing is, good.
Yeah.
All right, David. Right. Well, thank you so much for your question. It was good talking to you.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate you giving me the time. And hey, best of luck for the live show that you guys have in September.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
You guys have a great day.
You too.
All right, Matty, how about one or two more? We'll see how long the first one takes, and then we'll maybe do a second. All right, cool.
Sure. Radic, hello. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. Is this Matty?
Yes, it is. Yeah, we got Ben here with us. How are you doing?
Not too bad. How are you?
Good. Right. Good. What do you want to talk about?
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I was playing some Vita earlier this morning.
Oh, what were you playing?
I was playing two games, actually. Of course, PlayStation All-Stars. I'm a stan for that game.
Absolutely.
And the second one is Little Deviants. It's kind of my Spike Platinum right now. But, like, I do not like the game at all, but I'm so close to it. I just gotta do it.
I understand that. We've all been there. For me, that's Amazing Spider-Man 2. I don't know if I've told that story. I feel like I recently have. But Amazing Spider-Man 2, I was so deep into it. I remember grinding the Kind of Funny podcast when Colin was on it. That's how long ago this was. It was 2014. I was grinding the Kind of Funny podcast for 5 hours, just leveling up all my suits on the same fucking prison mission to get the platinum. And then I had to beat the game on hard. And immediately when the platinum popped, I ejected the disc, put it in the case, and put it in a trade-in stack for GameStop. Like, I'm done. I hate that game. But I got the platinum for it.
Yeah, that's all that matters. I saw some YouTube videos on that game like a couple years ago. I was like, damn, this game looks like it.
Yeah,
like it really
it's amazing bad. Because pardon the pun, the first Amazing Spider-Man game was really enjoyable. It was honestly, I still stand by it, one of the best Spider-Man game made. It really was an excellent open world title that kind of it was clearly mimicking the Arkham style Spider-Man game, but it was still its own thing. And it was a blast to go through. I got almost all the achievements for it. I really like the game. Funny enough, they have a Vita port for that. That's pretty decent. But that's neither here nor there. What did you want to talk about today, Radic?
So has anyone asked you about Sly Cooper yet?
No one has.
Perfect.
All right.
So, yeah, just gut check. What's going on with Sly Cooper right now in 2021? Because we got that Funko Pop.
Mm-hmm.
He has a cameo in the specific PlayStation game that came out this year.
Yep.
Won't spoil it. I feel like there's a lot of fervor around Sly Cooper, even though that there's no game. So, do you think there's a chance that this IP can come back?
I do. I genuinely do. I know I'm a huge fan of it, and sometimes I let that cloud my judgment where I'm like, well, I want it to happen. So, yes, it is going to happen. Although I'm self-aware enough to call myself out on it. With that said, with Sly Cooper, I think, let me roll it back to really Ratchet. I think with Ratchet still being a marketable, popular, high-selling IP in 2021, that they can look at other old mascot platformers and go, what if we brought this back? I think Jack and Daxter's on that list. I think Sly Cooper, if they were to remake it, right? They did a Sly Cooper and the Thieves Raccoonus remake and just took elements from Sly Band of Thieves, Thieves in Time, and Honor Among Thieves. They just took elements from all those and then put them in the remake, kind of like what we've seen before, where you sort of modernize the first game. I do think that people would eat that up. Maybe not on the level of a Crash Bandicoot, but I do think no one could have predicted that game would have sold 10 million copies. And I do think that this would be a multi-million seller because now you've got a huge PlayStation audience that's larger than it's ever been. They're hungry for exclusives constantly. There's a quality level there. There's an established dominance in that IP. And I think it's one of the more underrated stories PlayStation has told with Sucker Punch.
Agree.
And there's a charm in its writing. It's excellent. As much as I want it to happen, I do genuinely believe that it can, because there is Blue Point now, who reportedly they're remaking Metal Gear Solid, but that would be one of the first IP I'd toss to them. I'd be like, try something with Sly Cooper. Let's see if we can get something going there. Just because it also fits the mold of their third-person style games. It really does, where I think that it could slot in nicely. I don't know if it would be their best-selling game, and maybe if they're taking that blockbuster approach like we've heard, this may not appeal to them now, but I do think it would sell well enough to justify existing, for sure.
So you want a remake, not like a continuation of Sly 4, I mean?
No, because I was doing research on it for a video, right? And I'm sure if you're asking me about Sly Cooper, you may have caught it, but I didn't know this until I looked into Sly 4 Thieves in Time more, and we were talking about kind of funny, and funny enough, they were actually talking on that show about Sly's Thieves in Time's DLC, and Sanzaru was saying that was the goal, is to, without spoiling it for those who haven't played it, at the end something happens to Sly Cooper and people are like, well, what happens next? Oh, they're going to tell it in the fifth game, right? And they were actually going to plan on wrapping that up with DLC. Now, where that DLC ended up and if that set up a fifth game, who knows? But they were going to tell that story with DLC. Yeah, so I wonder if they just leave it, because now Sanzaru has gone over to Facebook and they're working on VR games of all things. So there's no way they're coming back. You could hand the IP off and have someone do a Sly 5 and continue the story. But now you've moved from Sucker Punch to Sanzaru to a third team. It's got that Star Wars stink on it now where I'm like, oh, there's too many hands in this. Let's just start over. And I'd say you mentioned gut check the audience in general and see if there's interest there, which they have with merchandise and Easter eggs. It's like, okay, there's people there who are very excited about this. Now let's make a game. Now I'm not saying an Easter egg justifies making a whole game. I think there's metrics beyond that, of course. But I think a remake's the best route to go because it's been so long, right? It's been since 2013. I would love it if they just picked it up, but I know business-wise that doesn't make sense. So I would anticipate a remake if they were to do something, right? They have the trilogy remastered. If they could bring that along, that'd be cool. But I anticipate a remake. Ben, I just want to toss it to you. Do you have any thoughts on Sly Cooper at all?
Yeah, I don't think I want a new game. I think a remake would be cool, but it's kind of one of those things for me. Like Sly Cooper fits kind of in the camp of Space Jam, maybe, where it's like I loved the first one as a kid. I guess I wasn't quite a kid when I was already married by the time the last Sly Cooper game came out. But
Holy crap!
yeah, the I really enjoyed the Sly Cooper games, but I don't know if the next one is going to be what I want, and I would rather never know than be disappointed. So I would love a remake. I think that'd be cool. And maybe if they do a remake and it's great, then they could do another one and it would justify the price. But for me, like just jumping in 8-ish years later after the last one, and like you don't know, it's not the same team, it's not the same environment, it's not the same console. Like I don't know. I'm just a little trepidatious about it. I would prefer a remake over a new one for sure. At least the first. Yeah.
Where do you stand, Radic?
Yeah, I'm so conflicted on this because to one of your first points, like as you said, like Ratchet has become more of a family-friendly icon for PlayStation. I don't know if you saw the NBA tweeted about Ratchet and Clank. I was like, what? The NBA's tweeting about Ratchet? So like, could you imagine that with like Sly Cooper?
Yeah.
Like even Sackboy and Astrobot have been kind of, I wouldn't say Astrobot's iconic yet, but people know who Sackboy and Astro are. The general gaming audience. So I think Sly Cooper can definitely fit alongside those trio of characters.
Absolutely.
Someone that can become an icon.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard Xbox talk about how they want family-friendly stuff, and I think it's a big focal point that a lot of us overlook as, you know, we're young adults or adults who are core gamers. We're looking at the more hardcore titles. We're not really thinking about that stuff. Where Sly Cooper, what's so beautiful about that IP, at least what Sucker Punch did with it, and to some extent Sanzaru, is the way they write the games. It's very kid-friendly, but there's with how deep the universe is and the characters. There's something there for a young adult audience too, where we don't think much about family games, but they are a priority for these companies. And I do think if you have Sackboy, you've got Astrobot baked in, you've got Ratchet. I think one more, you know, that's the thing. PlayStation has the really strange benefit of having these family-friendly icons that are appealing to a older audience. I think that's super rare to have. And Xbox has the opposite, right? They've got Conquer, which looks like a family-friendly IP on the cover, and you get in there, it's this M-rated trash-talking thing. It's like, what is this? So it's very interesting to take a look at overall, the bird's eye view of it. I feel like they'll eventually bring it back. I don't know if it'll be soon because they're only just now ramping up merchandise, but I would be shocked and not shocked if they did it, right? I'd be shocked. Oh my God, it's happening. I would not be shocked if they actually went through with it though.
Yeah, and this one final point. I love what he said about like how Sly appeals to everyone because I think of Bentley the turtle. Like he becomes just crippled, and like you don't see that in a kid's game. And I love how like in the third game he has a wheelchair. He still has effective. He still has all the cool sleep darts and smoke bombs. Yeah, so I love that. Like that serious part is still there.
Yeah,
so
that's where they really started to take it more seriously with Sly 3 and Sly 4, really the ending of 2. But yeah, it was a huge turning point for that series where you went, whoa, we won, but this is really sad.
Yeah.
So I agree entirely. Yeah, there's something there for everybody. All right, Radic.
Pretty much all I have to ask. Thank you, Ben.
No problem, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to ask about Sly Cooper. Always happy to talk about that.
Cheers, boys.
See you later. All right, Ben, we got a couple of people left. What do you want to do? We want to burn through them? I don't want to rush anyone, or we could just wrap this up here.
Well, it's totally up to you. I got about 30 minutes to my next appointment.
Okay. Let's get one person in. We'll see how that goes, and we'll probably wrap it up after that.
Okay, sounds good. Here we go.
All right. Elgar Dog 12. Can you hear us? Oh, hold on. Hello.
Hey.
Hi, how's it going, man?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. Good to talk to you. We got Ben here with us. What do you want to chat about?
Well, have you guys discussed at length any of the Microsoft or Japanese acquisitions they would need to make?
We have not talked to Xbox in Japan, no.
Okay, sweet. So my question is, what strategy or studios do they need to create or acquire to make inroads in the Japanese market, as I feel that is kind of the uncharted waters that they need to take on to really, solidify themselves as a big player in terms of, really matching Sony. So I just kind of want to get your thoughts on that. I have my own, but
well, hey, let's start there, right? You're the guest. What do you think about Xbox and Japan and their current status? Just to get a gauge on that.
Well, Xbox has always had, a big footprint in the US, obviously as an American company.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably smaller in Europe and then very small in Japan. So, I feel like they need to have some more niche games or studios to kind of pull the hardcore Japanese gaming audience.
Yeah.
And my thought is, okay, besides the larger companies like Sega or, From Software, what would be a cool Japanese hardcore studio that they could acquire? And my thought was like an Arc System Works for, the fighting genre. And off the back of Phil Spencer's comments recently about Killer Instinct, I mean, that would be a cool mashup of two,
right.
An IP in a studio. So that was kind of my thought, or, maybe creating a new studio completely of Japanese talent.
Yeah, it's funny you asked this question because I've been thinking about this a lot lately because I want, as a JRPG fan in general, Xbox to invest in it because you don't get games like I always champion Lost Odyssey on this show on how much I love it. You just don't get something like that if they're not invested, right? And to me, that was worth the investment alone. And you get Infinite Undiscovery, you get Operation Darkness. Those are sort of my three main Xbox JRPGs that I go to where I'm like, they need to be invested because they've made three really good ones. Not that the other ones they did were bad, because there are other exclusive ones, like I think Spectral Force 3 is one, but there is something there when they're invested that's unique. We were going to get Scalebound. Obviously, that did not go well. When they're involved, there are these really cool combinations of like Japanese games with substantial budgets. Once again, Lost Odyssey really being the pinnacle of that. But as I give it more thought, I don't know if the route of divide and conquer in Japan is really what they need to establish a footprint there. I think it's a slow and steady thing. So I think the first thing they need to do is really attack the third-party IP and just get it on their console. Make it where it's not only PlayStation. So those are games like Persona, Trails of Cold Steel. They're doing a bunch of Trails of localizations. Get those over. Get Catherine on. Like, take these games that are already there on PlayStation and Switch and start bringing them to Xbox. Just make it another platform it's available on. Show Japan and their game creators that your console supports their games. Because the way I look at it is if they go out there and they're like, let's buy Sega. So we have these Persona games on Xbox. It's like, well, now Persona is just going to die because there isn't a fan base there. You haven't built it up. And so that's why I think Game Pass is such a key to getting into Japan and all these other countries, Japan aside, like Europe, and making Xbox really attractive for them is saying like, well, our fan base just likes good games like any other. And if you're making a great game, we have right now, probably I'd imagine they've safely passed 20 million subscribers. We have this 20 million subscriber base and we're going to let you launch your game on here. We'll pay you for it. I just think that money matters, right, to a lot of these companies. But if you're selling out as a Japanese company to Xbox, yeah, you'll be financially covered, but no creator wants to make something for no one. Right. That's just the reality. Even someone working on a YouTube video, starting a new channel, the biggest discouraging part of it all that I hear from new creators is like, no one's watching, right? Like yeah, your bills could be covered, but if no one's playing, then who are you making games for? And so I feel like it starts to become uninspired. Where I think Xbox needs to take the long road to it's like, let's start getting games on here. Then let's attack with Game Pass. Once we've built up an audience and people know that maybe we're not known for it, but know we have Japanese stuff, then start going hard with exclusives. I look at Nintendo as a prime example, right? They were the kid-friendly console, but as PlayStation loosened their grip on the likes of visual novels, Nintendo Switch has become a dominant console for that. And then they can move into other spaces where Astral Chain, I know it sounds a little off the wall from your visual novels, but that sells over 1 million copies. It does really well for them. And it's like, well, I'm imagining they'll do another one of those. Xbox can get there, but a lot of people I think are 5 steps ahead of them. I think they need to work their way up to that. That's how I stand on it. What about you, Ben?
I really don't. I would say I'm not the person to ask about this too much because I know almost nothing about the Japanese market.
Fair enough.
But I think that you're right. The biggest thing you said there that resonated with me is that nobody wants to make something for no one. And so I think of like, if somebody offered you a $10,000 sponsorship for a YouTube video that was going to take you 2 hours to make, but you knew only one person was going to see it. Yeah, you'd feel really good about that. But if you're a creator and you want to get your medium out into the world, so I think continuing to expand that base and being able to show that. But as far as what the actual Japanese market is like, I know what their stuff is like over here. I don't really know what things are like over there, to be quite frank.
Yeah. I think that sponsorship comparison is actually perfect because especially when you mention mobile games, like that is a perfect example of these mobile developers will pay out the ass for you to do a dedicated video on your platform. And you look at the now and you're like, that's a lot of money. I've seen some offers, man. And look, I'm a decent sized channel, but I'm nowhere near the size of some of these channels where if I'm getting big money offers, then I imagine others are getting even larger and they want you to do a dedicated video. It's like, yeah, I could collect 15 grand right now and walk away with one mobile video. And I'm sure everyone would be fine, but there's damage to the audience to that. And also no one's going to watch.
Right.
And it's like, I don't want your money. That's like blood money to me. And I think for Japan working directly with Xbox, to them, it's almost blood money to take their cash and be bought out because they're going to be making for no one who's interested at the moment. They got to work and build that up. And I think Game Pass is sort of the key to that.
Sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess, do you think Microsoft should fight harder for those Square Enix titles that Sony is buying exclusivity for?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Because I think that would be a big, like you said, to broaden the audience, Final Fantasy new and, day and date on Xbox would be huge. Okay.
Absolutely. I think, they can't play it safe, right? When you play it safe and small, it's like, okay, if you're working with like an indie team on a JRPG or so, it's like, they're helping with the Eiyuden Chronicle, right? And that's like a really smart Game Pass get for them, but that's not going to be enough. That's like a small, minuscule piece of the puzzle. Yeah, you're going to need some type of exclusivity deal that says to people at some point, like, we're committed to like getting you JRPGs. Like, I don't remember the last time they did a big Japanese exclusive. I think really that was Scalebound, and that obviously fell apart and almost destroyed one of my favorite developers ever, which is Platinum. So yeah, there's something there to investigate for them, but I think there's also maybe a hesitation for Japanese companies to work with them based off that. To my final point, that's why working with Hideo Kojima is such a large statement. It says to them, okay, we are committing. We've got Japan's arguably most legendary developer next to like Shinji Mikami here with us making something, and through Game Pass, through the cloud, we're going to make this thing possible. And I think maybe that's where you'll start to see a turning point. But to your question, yeah, I think there's a lot of building blocks they need to establish to get there.
Okay. Yeah, that all makes sense. I mean, I hope that Kojima game is awesome as a huge Metal Gear Solid fan. So
same.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, Helger Dog. Thank you so much for your time, for your great question. It was excellent talking to you.
Yeah. Thanks for your guys' time, and a big fan of your guys' work.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good little JRPG question there. I'm always hyped to talk about that.
Yeah.
All right. Indeed. We're creeping in on hour 40 minutes now. I think we've gone on long enough.
I think so too. Yeah. We keep having people come into the room and leave and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's when I saw more people come in. I was like, okay, I was thinking, let's see if we can clean it up, but we'll just have to wait till our next call-in episode. Certainly this won't be our last. I'm just having a lot of fun doing it. It's a really good challenge because it's like I just, once again, you can't prepare for everything. So it's like, did I do my homework? And I think I did well. That was a lot of fun though. Ben, thank you so much for doing this alongside me, for supporting me, being the co-pilot who's pulling everyone in and then supporting with the thoughts.
No problem.
To the audience who tapped in is listening back, thank you all so much for giving us your time. I don't just say it because it's nice. I say it because some of you sat in there, like Radic was one who sat in there for a good hour, and maybe Radic was just like playing a game in the meantime, but still, a lot of you sat in there and waited until we could pull you in. So thank you so much. Those who we missed, I apologize. Hopefully we can catch you next time. But thank you all so much for your time, for listening in, and we'll definitely do this again. This was a lot of fun. And let me know, of course, I'm always open to feedback if there's ways we can do this better or be more interactive, or did I not let the audience talk enough? Let me know. Fire away. And until then, we'll catch you with episode 26 of Defining Duke Ultimate and episode 30, I want to say, of Defining Duke. Take good care of yourselves and peace out.
Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC and is recorded from the good old USA. The show was conceived by Matthew Mr. Matty Plays Schroeder and me, Colin Moriarty, and is written and produced by Matthew Schroeder. Defining Duke's executive producer is Dustin Furman, and the show is edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's shows, including Defining Duke, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer support level or higher on Patreon, and we're grateful for your kindness and generosity.